Taba in my language means thank you, so thank you all for coming and enduring this cold weather to come listen to me run my mouth for a while. It's always a pleasure to be here. I've had the awesome opportunity to come and be able to present here at the Crew a couple times now. So I appreciate you guys coming out to spend some time with me tonight. We get to talk about our moons, which is something really close to my heart. It's an exhibit I curated, but it's also a traditional style of life for my people. And it's really our calendar on how we go through life. And right now is a really prime good one, January, which is our wolf moon. Traditionally we don't have, well, not traditionally, but nowadays we don't have wolves here. We have really big coyotes. This time of year, this night is a prime example of it, where it gets dark relatively early and it's really cold. Winter is hard for everybody and everything. The trees go through a process where they drop their leaves and they're looking to preserve energy to get through winter. The bears have gone into hibernation. The deer, the bucks will drop their antlers to preserve energy to get through winter. So everything's going through a transition at this time. And wolves traditionally would come closer to communities looking for scraps and food. So we'd hear their howls more at this time of year. And tonight looks like a night we probably hear a wolf howl 400 or 500 years ago. But this exhibit has been something really, really important to me. We're working on a book now that's going to come out, a children's book about the 13 moons. We also have a traditional harvester's calendar getting ready to come out as well, which that calendar for each and every month will entail local things to our area that you can go out and harvest, where is best to find them, and recipes and different remedies to use them for, whether they're medicinal or they just taste really good. So a lot of cool things coming up that go along with this exhibit. The exhibit opened in August, and that was our grand opening, but we're having some additions to it now. We're in our off season, we're in a closure at the Pequot Museum, and we're doing a lot of renovations, a lot of CapEx stuff, which is always boring but fun. It's giving us time to really revamp and upgrade programming. I serve as the head of education at the Pequot Museum, so it's allowing us to really sharpen up and be ready for the new year. And for us, we think of New Year as January 1st, but traditionally for our people, New Year is at the start of spring, so March and April. The next moon coming up after this one in February is our snow moon. And the snow moon is somewhat fitting for today, but we really don't get that much snow anymore, right? I always say back in my day, I remember we used to get a whole bunch of snow. And that's not the case anymore, but February historically is the month with the highest recorded snowfall in the region. And it was so much so back in my ancestors' time that they used to have to create snowshoes and walk around in snowshoes. In our homes, our dome-style homes, were called weetus. You guys might have heard the term wigwam. Anyone heard wigwam? Yeah, wigwam is actually a European misinterpretation of Algonquian language. So when our people came out of our homes and said wigwam, which is a welcome, they associated it with it being the home, when in turn it was welcome to my home. So our homes are called weetus or weetus, and we would say that the snow would get so high that it would cover the doorways, and we'd have to climb out of the smoke wall out the top and throw in our snowshoes. But historically, winter was the time of knowledge for our people. Everyone likes a good snow day, an opportunity to stay inside, but for us, a snow day was a time to listen to our elders and try to soak and absorb as much knowledge as we could. Traditionally, we didn't have books, we didn't have a written language, so everything was passed down through oral histories and traditions, telling these stories and passing them on. And today it's something we really encourage, is taking time to go speak with family members. One thing, a theme that I kind of noticed within my family is I don't get to hear a lot of stories about my family members until they're already gone, until we're reminiscing on them. So we've really tried to take a lot of initiative in having these conversations and being able to just come over, knock on the door and say, hey, can we talk? Can we spend some time? And that's a really important thing. And in my community and in indigenous communities and indigenous way of life, really focuses on relationships. That's the core of our ways. So relationships with yourself, relationships with your family and friends, with the land, with creation, and those are all core to your growth. So that is all highlighted within this exhibit, and I really hope you guys come and check it out. when you first enter the exhibit, we have the Muhshâtunônak Gallery, which is our 4,000 square foot gallery space. And you come into this space, and we created a theater there with projectors all around you. So you'll enter a room a little bit smaller than this, and there'll be projections all around you, and you'll be within this story, and you'll get to hear my people's creation story. So my people of the Northeast, we have a creation story that has to do with sky world. And up above us, there's a sky world, we believe, and in this sky world, there was a big storm. And when this storm occurred, it did a lot of damage, and it knocked down a big tree within sky world. And Sky Woman came from her home, and she was looking around, examining the damage, and she saw this tree, and she walked up to the hole, and she peeked down through it, and she saw Earth. But at this time, Earth was only a planet of water. Didn't have any land on it whatsoever. And she was looking down through, and she fell down towards Earth. And as she was falling down towards Earth, all the waterfowl, the ducks, the geese, slowly started to guide her fall. They caught her and led her down into the water. And as she got closer to the water, a giant turtle rose from the sea, and they placed her on the back of that turtle, and she called out for help. There were no people there, but there were whales, there were fish, there were beavers, there were otters, muskrats, and she had a task. She wanted to know if they could swim to the bottom and grab earth, grab mud, dirt, bring that back up to her, and she could bring more life here. So the whale said, yeah, I can do that, no problem. I'm the biggest animal in the sea. And with one flip of his tail, swam to the bottom of the ocean. He got to the bottom, but not having hands that work out for him. The fins were a little bit of a struggle down there. The shark said, I'm the fiercest animal in the sea. This is easy. He swam down, ran into the same problem. There was a little muskrat, which I brought a bunch of furs for you guys to check out today. There was a little muskrat, and he said, I can do it. And everyone kind of looked at him and said, you're little, you smell funny, we don't think you can do it. And he took a deep breath, and he dove off the back of the turtle and swam down to the bottom of the ocean. And with his little paw, was able to grab earth. But as you know, the deeper you go in the sea, the more pressure there is. And it squeezed his lungs, and he didn't make it. But he floated to the surface, and when he floated to the surface, in his paw, he had clutched earth. And they opened his paw, and they took that earth and put it on the turtle's shell, and she planted seeds there, and land spread. So we call North America Turtle Island because of that. Muskrat, which will be able to feel his pelt today, his future generations were gifted a pelt comparable to beaver, really soft and a prized pelt historically. And that turtle shell we then use as a calendar. So every turtle in the world, have it be a snapping turtle here in Connecticut or a sea turtle in the Caribbean, has 13 spaces on the top of its shell. On the outer edge of the shell, it has 28 spaces. And each and every year, there's 13 full moons. And between each full moon, that lunar cycle, there's 28 days. I don't know how or why, but because of that, that's what we use as a calendar. So our years are dated by these moons, and our days by that lunar cycle. And each moon, something is ripe and ready to eat, or there's a task for us to do. There's something to get done, whether it's planting corn, which we'll go through all the moons for you guys. And it's something that is starting to come around more, and of course it varies by region, but most tribal communities, we call it kind of pan-Indian. It spans across North America, and everyone has a relationship with the moon, and their moons will vary. So here, like I said, it's our snow moon now, but if you go out to Arizona, it's their deer moon, because their deer are rutting and they're in their mating season. Now we're here, that happens in November. So different areas, different resources, different moons. But the one that we worked on here is specific to our region here, and it helps reconnect you with the land, and that's really important. And we call them 13 Thanksgivings today. And this is where we get to kind of adjust our point of views on the first Thanksgiving that is taught in public school systems and everyone gets to know, which I'm not a big fan of Thanksgiving, the idea, but I'm a big fan of always getting together and having a good meal with family. As you can tell, I don't turn away many meals. I didn't get this big from looking at food, so it's an awesome time. But there's a lot of misconceptions around it, and some of the major first celebrations of Thanksgiving were actually celebrations of the Pequot War. and the Mystic Massacre, a 100-year feast afterwards. And the idea of Thanksgiving becoming a federal holiday from Abraham Lincoln comes from a woman named Sarah Hale. And if you guys take some time to do a little bit of research on Sarah Hale, she would write for magazines. And she had all types of different notions, and if you look at our life today, look at her writings, you think it's pretty funny. The idea to wear white at your wedding comes from Sarah Hale. The idea to bicker back and forth at the Thanksgiving table comes from Sarah Hale. The idea to decorate a Christmas tree comes from Sarah Hale's writings. So the influence that she was able to have, and of course being a good friend of Lincoln, tied in. Lincoln looking to kind of bring some sort of unity, feel-good feeling to the country at the time, elected to make Thanksgiving a federal holiday. So that idea, we rolled that. We all like a good meal and get together, but our idea of Thanksgiving is a little bit different. So traditionally, when you have crops and different resources that only come out once a year, today we're spoiled. We can go to our grocery store and get what we want, when we want, from anywhere in the world. But my ancestors, traditionally, if you wanted blueberries, you had to wait till July. And when those blueberries became ripe again, you would have a celebration of Thanksgiving because you're thankful for that harvest. Our Thanksgiving revolved mostly around harvests. So the next moon we'll jump to is the snow moon, which we talked about. And then March, which is our maple syrup, which in my language we say ukapahik, which means sweet soup because of that process of boiling down the sugar water, which is 60 gallons of sugar water to make 1 gallon of syrup, which we do on our res each and every year. We have a sugar shack. And if you go to Foxwoods and have a short stack of pancakes, you'll have syrup made right in Kentucky, which is pretty cool. And their tapping trees actually now, when it's freezing at night and warmer in the morning, you'll get a good flow of sugar water throughout the trees. But that's our traditional New Year as well. March, early April is our New Year, when life starts to come around again. When the trees start to bud, when the bears wake from their hibernation, that's our New Year traditionally. So we have New Year holidays and events that we celebrate. That's when the museum is actually reopening. On our New Year, we'll have a big celebration to go into that as well. Next is April, which is our fish moon, which is one of my favorite moons. And it's when our herring start to run up our streams again. So blueback herring and Andromedas fish, which is migrating and going back and forth. And if you guys have ever had the opportunity to see a herring run, it is pretty cool to see thousands of little fish working their way up. And that little fish plays a big role for a lot of different things. For our ospreys, for our raccoons, for striped bass, for fertilizer for the land as, you know, ospreys and hawks and eagles come down and grab them. And they wiggle free and drop in the woods or drop on the land. That's providing fertilization, and that's an opportunity for them to go back to the land, which is really useful. And then for us, so we get to take nets in a 5-gallon bucket and go scoop up herring. And we always tease when we make our young ones try to grab them with their hands. First one you got to try to catch with your hands, which is always fun, in relatively cold water. But we scoop them with nets and we fill them in a bucket, and some of them are destined for the dinner table, some of them are destined for our gardens. It helps prep the soil, fertilize the soil to get ready for our growing period, which is a really, again, important resource for us historically. Once we were able to get into horticulture, traditionally our populations really started to bloom. So prior to horticulture, they estimate populations of indigenous people here in the Northeast and New England, what we know as New England, about 15,000 years ago, to be between 250 and 500 people. So much smaller populations. As that climate started to change and we have a true 4 seasons, and then the introduction of horticulture comes in with corn, beans, and squash being the primary crops that we're growing. Corn is the oldest sister. We identify corn, beans, and squash as the 3 sisters. Corn is the oldest sister. It was the first domesticated crop by indigenous people. And it originates as a wild grass called teosinte in Mexico. Over thousands of years of indigenous women in Mexico domesticating that crop. We have corn of today, which is in almost everything. And the corn we're growing traditionally isn't like sweet corn that we get at the market today. It's not really juicy, it's drier. It's meant to dry up and grind down to make corn meals. Then beans come next. They're the middle child, so they're always going to rely on the older sister, the corn. So they're going to wrap their vine around that corn stalk for support. And then squash is the little one, the baby of the family, so they'll be down at the bottom. And it has a big leaf to help block out the sun, keeps the soil moist longer, so you don't have to go in there and weed your garden all day long. Corn needs a very nitrogen-rich soil to grow, and beans do a really incredible thing by creating nitrogen in an oxygen-rich environment, which is relatively rare. You don't see it too many places, but it happens right in the soil when you grow those crops together. And then the squash puts phosphorus into the soil, which the corn and the beans need to grow. So they all help each other out, and when eaten together, it provides you with the nutrients you need to survive. And from that, our populations were able to bloom. Once we get to the 1500s, estimated population of just the Pequot tribe is around 12 to 15,000 Pequots. And that's just one tribe in this region. We can talk about, of course, Mohegan, we can talk about Quinnipiac, Tungsis, Podunk, a lot of other tribal communities in this region, Narragansett, which is comparable size to the Pequot people at the time. So just the land is sustaining larger numbers with the more resources it has due to climate change and having a true 4 seasons, and of course the introduction to horticulture. So April is our corn planting moon. That's the time of year when we have harvested the fish. We put the fish into the soil, and now it's time to get your crop ready. So that time of year we're focusing on planting all our seeds. It's a time where we celebrate that process, and that's something that traditionally the women in our community would do. They would plant the seeds. The men would clear the fields and cut the land, because in our community, women are known as the givers of life. They give birth, and they had high social status. The highest social status you can have in a community here traditionally was an elder woman. And so the women would plant the corn to give life. When it comes time to clear the land, that's when the men would come in. There are some crops that women weren't allowed to grow traditionally, like tobacco. That's also something you're going to plant around that same time, because nicotine can get into the pores when dealt with, and if that woman is pregnant, it can affect child. So that's one that's a plant that's solely dealt with by men, even still to this day in our communities. Next up is Strawberry Moon, which is one of my favorites. What the Ham is how you say that in Pequot. And we have a celebration at the museum now, a Strawberry Thanksgiving, which is transitioning this year into a farmer's market, which is going to be really awesome. And the strawberry is one of the first berries, and it was given to our people for forgiveness. And so we have a ceremony with the strawberry, and the first strawberry from your garden each year you're supposed to share with someone. And you're supposed to share with someone who you're not getting along with, someone who you're having squabbles with or back and forth, and take it as an opportunity to say, hey, we may not agree, but it's time for us to be friends again and talk it out. And we have that ceremony once a year, and it's a really important thing to do, because we only get really one shot at this, right? Life's pretty short, and being able to make amends with people you love and people, your friends, are really important. So we get to have that opportunity from a little berry each and every year, which is pretty awesome. So that's coming up at the museum in June, which is really amazing. Next up in July is our Blueberry Moon. My daughter was born in July, and she is a blueberry fanatic. We go pick blueberries, and we have our baskets, and I'll fill my basket up and I'll look over at her, and she'll have some blueberries in there, but she'll have a purple ring around them. So she's a really good blueberry eater. I don't know about picker, but she's a really good eater. And these blueberries provide so much for our people, but July historically is the hottest time of year for this region, July and August. So Creator gives us blueberries. When you eat blueberries, they actually help thin out your blood, and they keep you cooler and help you regulate your temperature in warmer months. So that's another key thing to follow with this calendar, eating traditional food sources that the land offers, eating seasonally. The land will offer you different resources that will help your body acclimate to where you're living. So no matter where you live in the world, if you eat seasonally in that place, the land offers you gifts to survive there. And July is when blueberries are ripe and ready, and that's what we harvest at that time. Next, in August, is a time for celebration for our people. It's our green corn moon. We call it Skimitzen. If you guys have ever been, it's our powwow that we have annually. And Skimitzen means 3-day feast, traditionally. So it's a time where we gather together with other communities and celebrate a harvest. And for us, that's one of the funnest times of the year. My community used to hold the largest powwow in the world. It's a bit smaller today, a little bit more intimate, but it is still a really amazing powwow where people from all over the country and Canada come, and we get to share music, we get to share stories, we get to share our dance styles, our food, and our crafts. And it's always the last weekend in August, and it's open to the public and everyone to come, and it's always a really good time. Next is September. September is our harvest moon. That's when you really harvest the last of your crops in this region. And that time of year, again, we would call for celebration, but really August and September is where all the local tribes in this region have their annual gatherings. So second weekend in August is Narragansett. I'm Pequot, and I'm also Narragansett. Is Narragansett powwow. The following weekend would be Mohegan powwow. Then would be us, and then to close off in this region would be Shinnecock on Long Island. So those are all harvest celebration powwows. From September getting into October, again, the land offering gifts to help you acclimate. It offers one last berry for the year, and that's a cranberry. So October, you get to go harvest your cranberries, and there's a few bogs in the area where we go harvest cranberries today. And that cranberry does the opposite of a blueberry for you. It helps purify your blood, tons of antioxidants, just like a blueberry, but it actually thickens your blood. It helps you get ready for a cooler climate to keep you warmer. So just more awesome gifts that the land is going to continue to throw at you, which is pretty amazing. From there, this is where the idea of a 13th moon comes in. Sometimes it falls in the summertime, but a lot of times it's in the fall, and it's between October and November, and that is the falling leaves moon. So like I was mentioning, everything needs to transition to prepare for winter. White-tailed deer are eating a lot of acorns that are dropping from the trees. The trees are starting to change color, the leaves are changing colors, and the leaves are dropping. The land is doing what it needs to do to survive and prepare, and so are the people traditionally. Traditionally, we were getting ready to stockpile a lot of our food. We were moving inland at this time. So my people, for the majority of the year, spent our time in places like Stonington, right down by the coast. We have a strong relationship with the water. We believe the water has a spirit. We call it Kunâhneepamuhshâtunônak. So before we go out on a boat, or before we go fishing, we always say a prayer and ask for safe travel and safe passage, because the ocean can be flat and mellow and calm, or it can be rough and turbulent and do a lot of damage. So taking the time to say thank you and let's be safe is a really important thing to do. When I was a kid, we used to go out fishing every weekend, and I would always say, you know, hey, Wampagasa, I'm going out. I want to be safe, I want to come home, and I want to catch a big fish. And I remember one time I didn't do it, but I always wear a pouch. I have it in my truck right now, and it's filled with my medicines that I leave behind. So no matter what I harvest, traditionally no matter what we harvest, we leave tobacco behind and we say thank you. So if it's picking a blueberry, if it's picking a mushroom, if it's harvesting an animal, or harvesting a deer, anything, we say thank you. And I didn't bring my pouch. And we were going out to Block Island on our boat, and I was sitting at the front of the boat, and pretty good waves that day, and I got launched up in the air and came down and landed on my butt, and I was like, didn't leave tobacco. And I was like, Dad, do you have any tobacco? He's like, yeah. So I grabbed some from him, said my prayer, put it in the water, and we kept going. Not 5-10 minutes later, dolphins started to jump from the water where we're going. I was like, yeah, okay, good, I'm listening. So Creator always is really good at reminding you, and something I always tell people is, I've never heard anyone say, well, man, they say thank you too much. It's hard to say thank you too much, right? And that relationship that I was mentioning, forming relationships are really important, and not just with other individuals, but with the land itself. We are able to harvest so much, even still to this day. Like I said, we're really spoiled. We can go to grocery stores and get whatever we want. But if you take the time to learn about the land and learn about the resources that the land offers, specifically here in the Northeast too, we're extremely spoiled where we have the sea right here, then all that the land offers us as well. We can really have a really abundant life. A traditional life though isn't an easy one. It takes a lot of work. So my family, we go out, and this time of year, I have family that go out and harvest scallops. And it's cold, you're out on the boat, you're getting wet, you come home, and then we're putting in time where they're shucking scallops for 12 hours a day or 14 hours a day. So you get that amazing food source, but you have to work for it. And that's what sometimes shoos people away. It's a hard thing to do, but taking the time to honor your harvest is really important. Taking the time to put in the work. The harvesting is the quick part. All the work that comes after is the rewarding part, but it's work. So with that comes November, and November is our hunting moon. And I'm a hunter and fisherman, outdoorsman, and November is the time where the white-tailed deer go into their rut, and they're typically older deer are nocturnal, and they'll only come out to eat your nice shrubs and stuff at night. The big ones, the young ones will come out and look at you and act goofy and stuff like that, but the big ones are smart, and they're built to survive. So they have habits, and they'll walk the same paths. They have the same spots that they'll bed in, and they'll move at the same time. So being able to spend a lot of time out in the woods and learn these habits are really important to hunters. But in November, all of that gets thrown out the window, and they're focused on breeding. And the males run crazy for an entire month, and deer, other bucks that they've been running with for the entire year, their siblings and all their friends who they've been eating in the field with all year long, become their mortal enemy. And they fight each other for the rights to breed. As soon as that month is over, they'll be running around together like two peas in a pod, perfectly fine. But something switches in their brain each and every November, and it's, I need to breed and you need to get out of the way. Because of that, they become susceptible to calls. So you can rattle them in, you can do different fronts and different things to get them to come in, and they break that nocturnal habit and pretty much run around all day. And then by the end of the month, they're really hungry and they're just looking for food. But that time of year allows people to be successful in the woods and gives a good opportunity to be able to provide food for your family. Next up is December, and this is one of my favorite ones, not because it's Christmas time, but we have a moon that we call Nakomo, and Nakomo is our gift-giving moon, and it's a time of year traditionally where we would, monetary value and money wasn't really a thing for us back in the day. We had a trade economy, and this is the time that will allow us to share resources and help everyone have nice things, essentially. Whether it's wampum pieces or different furs, we're being able to take this time to acknowledge it. But this is also shows something that's really important to me, a message that's really important to me, and it's that, you know, my people are a present people as well. We're a modern people. We honor our past traditions, we honor our ancestors, but we also live today, and we're still a people today. There's 1,200 Pequots that are enrolled, and we live 15 minutes down the road, and we, you know, shop at the stores everyone else shops at. We live a life just like everyone else. And a lot of people, when they look at Indigenous people or Native people, they look at us as being, you know, from those Western films or from 500 years ago. So that moon is really to show that we're a modern people as well. And yeah, that's where we end, because we talked about January 1st, because that's where in the month, but typically January and February, for us, today, of course, they're the first 2 months, but traditionally in our calendar, they're the last 2 months. So I have a bunch of furs up here that I want to show you guys, but I also want to open it up for any questions you have. One thing that I really like for you guys to take the time to drive here is any questions you guys have about my people, about the museum, feel free to ask, because it's one thing to be lectured at and be spoken to, but to have the opportunity to ask and learn what you want to learn is really important to me. So this one is a red fox. This one came right from Mashantucket. A lot of these I trapped myself. And then we have a raccoon, the bandit, the trash panda. They are really awesome animals as well, though. When we harvest them, we render down the grease, and raccoon grease has a lot of uses as well. My people identify ourselves as the fox people, and the fox is a very resilient animal. It's an animal that can survive in almost any environment. You see foxes in the desert, you see them in the Arctic, and you see them everywhere in between. And they find a way to live, so that resilience is really important. Like I said, you guys can come up and touch me. I have beaver, muskrat, bobcat. So beaver is huge for my people, and it's huge really for the early formations of America. The beaver fur trade is really the first gold rush of North America. People were coming here, the Dutch, the English, the French were coming here to trade, to get these hides, to then send them back to Europe to make really fancy waterproof hats. And if you didn't have that hat, you weren't too popular at the time. And if the fashion senses didn't change to cottons and wools, we probably wouldn't have beavers anymore. Because we were shipping hundreds of thousands of beavers to Europe each and every year. The top coat of a beaver is oily, keeps them waterproofed. When you come up and touch it, if you peel back and then touch the underlayer here, that's the downy coat. That's what keeps them warm. That's the soft stuff. This is the muskrat, smaller, of course, but pretty similar to that beaver. Same idea, the downy coat, that oily tips. Anything that lives in water, otter is the same idea. And muskrats, he doesn't stink anymore, but when you catch him, they aren't the most pleasant to work with. And then bobcat, one of my favorites. This is a really soft hide. This is a pretty good size one. But cats are pretty much ninjas. Cats are crazy, even house cats. I have a cat, and if I move my foot when I'm sleeping, it'll attack my foot, and all types of craziness. But these cats can do pretty amazing things. They can even hunt and take down deer. And this cat was about 35 pounds. So they're survivors. They're extremely silent, big paws, and really renowned in this area for a hide.
Where did you capture that?
Mashantucket. Yeah.
Muskrats?
Muskrat came from right behind our fish hatchery. There's a little river that goes back there, but the muskrat came over there. Then we have a skunk. Skunks, I don't always like to get them in my traps. And I actually have a video on my phone. I caught one this year, and I let him go. And we kind of had a good conversation before I let him go, like, please don't spray me. You're free to go. And it worked out. I didn't get sprayed, but skunks traditionally you see pretty commonly harvested, and you'll see a lot of different variations today. They don't really look too much. They have more white in them than they did a couple hundred years ago. And then I have a piece of tanned leather, and this one was smoked. It's not a consistent smoke really, so you can see what the skin would look like before it's processed and smoked, and then this darker color when it's smoked. And this is a brain tanned hide. So you take the hide, once you skin that animal, it'll have a thin layer of flesh and meat still on it. You'll flesh that hide out and get down to just the skin. Then you'll take the brain and rub it into that hide. Every animal has the proportionate size brain to tan its own hide. You'll rub it into that hide with a little bit of water. You'll wring it like a towel. And then you're going to take it and stretch it, and you're going to smoke it. Some people sew it up, kind of like a cone, and put it over a fire so the smoke goes up inside. That's where you get the color from, but the smoke actually seals that brain mixture in the hide. And it's the tannins in the brain, that's the chemical in the brain, that tans the hide and makes it into a soft leather they can wear for clothing. If you don't do this process, it becomes rawhide, hard, dead skin. And if you don't smoke it a second time, if it gets wet, it'll harden back up. So we have to then take the hide after we do that first smoke, and we essentially beat the crap out of it and try to loosen the fibers. We have a ring, like a barrel ring, and we'll rub it back and forth to loosen the fibers. And then we'll bring it for our second smoke. Rawhide also has a purpose for our people though. We use it for rattles, we use it for the top of our big drums today. So it plays a really good role. And then this was completely necessary traditionally for us to have clothing. I have absolutely no idea who said, hey, let's take the brain and rub it on the skin and we'll have a leather that we can wear for clothing. But whoever did made life easier for generations. And it's still, you get the best quality leather from a good brain tanned hide. There are chemical methods today. People use acorns, eggs, and different things. But brain works really well.
Is that
Yeah.
what kind of hide is this? Soft tan?
This one's deer.
Here.